Welcome to C# for Crestron programming. In this tutorial, our objective is to learn about one of the most important pillars of object-oriented programming called inheritance. Class inheritance is a way for one class to extend to another class. Remember that objects are a collection of members. Also remember that the terms classes and objects are used interchangeably. The best way to explain inheritance is starting with a demo project in Visual Studio 2019 Community version. General inheritance syntax, modifier, class, child class, parent class. Let us start with a console.app.NET Framework example. We will rename the class program to something we are familiar with, display. Let us delete the main method within this class as well. We do not need it for now. We will define a method called test under the display class. Public void test, then console.writeLine, and display a message to console window, first method called. We define one more method, public void test2, console.writeLine, second method called. Our goal is to have both methods in another class. Let us add a new class by going into the Solution Explorer. Right-mouse-click the project name, then add New Item. Select Class and name this class Projector. Now we have two classes, our base class, or parent class, called Display, and our driven class, sometimes referred to as a child class, called Projector. Now I could copy the code in Display class and paste it into Projector class, but this is not the power of object-oriented programming style, right? This would increase your file size, and is an inefficient way of programming. This is where inheritance comes into use. Within the child, we can define inheritance. We define with a colon, right after the name of the class. Now our projector class will inherit the two methods we defined within the display class. We can define our main method within the child class since we will be calling the methods from the parent class inside the child class. Projector, myproj, equals to new projector, the instance of projector class. Now, as soon as you type myproj dot, you will see those methods test1 and test2 are available from display parent class along with some built-in .NET Framework methods. This tells us that child class, which we called projector, can consume the methods from the parent class, which we called display. This is a basic example of what is called inheritance. There is certainly more to it, including some rules, and we'll explain some of the important items. Further, when we select test1, read what it says, void display.test. This tells us that the child class is reaching out to a method defined within the parent class display. Isn't that interesting? Moving on, let us define another method within child class. We define public void test3 and another console.writeLine within the block third method called. Now we have three methods, two from the parent class and one within child class. Now run our code again to see if we can access this method as well. Yes, we can. See the output? There is one rule to mention here. The parent constructor must be accessible to the child class. Remember from the constructor tutorial that if we do not define a constructor explicitly, it will be created for us by the compiler implicitly. Thus, there is an implicitly defined constructor under the parent class that is public, and that is why we can access the methods within the parent class. Continuing, what if we explicitly define a constructor under parent class? We define under class display. As you recall, the constructor name must be the same name as the class name. So public display, console.writeLine, display class constructor called into action. Let us run the program again by hitting F5, which is a shortcut key. What do you notice? The display class constructor called first. Why? Because whenever a new instance of a class is created, the child class calls implicitly first the parent class constructor. The parent class constructor's job is to initialize variables defined within the parent class first. The child class also has an implicitly defined constructor. This implicit constructor is called parent class constructor. Even if we do not explicitly define a constructor in either class, there will be implicit constructors defined for us. If we define an explicit constructor, we need to define the access modifier to be public in order to be extended to the child class. If you do not define an access modifier by default, it will be private. As an example, if we delete the access modifier and it becomes private, what happens? When we run the code, the output shows display.display is inaccessible due to its protection level. Let us define another explicit constructor under child class projector. We will make it public so that if we want to create another instance of this child class later on, it needs to be public. If we do not want another instance of this child class later, then it is okay to be private or have no class identifier. Then console.writeLine, child class constructor is called into action. Notice the order of the execution. First display constructor, which is the parent class, then projector class constructor, and all three methods are called. What if you had created 5 classes? How would the execution start for constructors? The parent class would be first, then the 5th class, 4th class, 3rd class, etc. However, the program execution starts on child class because we define the main method under child class, which is the entry point to our program. Important points in summary. The parent class's constructor must be accessible to the child class, otherwise inheritance will not be possible. In inheritance, the child class can access parent class members, but parent classes can never access a child class member. Reverse inheritance does not work. We can initialize a parent class's variable by using the child class instance as a reference. A reference is a pointer to an instance which does not have any memory allocation. Thus, that reference will utilize the memory of the child class instance. You cannot call a child class member by using the reference. Thank you for watching.